Hi everyone, it's your favorite Atomic Blonde here. How you all doing? Yeah, as you can see, I thought I'd do a little Halloween special. As I've mentioned on a few reviews recently that I'm actually quite a big horror fan, and it's not something I massively cover on this channel, but I'm starting to correct that, I guess, because obviously I was predominantly, I guess a lot of kind of nerd fans, geek fans often like horror films as well. So I guess it's not a big leap, but obviously I predominantly sort of talk more pop culture on here rather than horror films. But yeah, so I thought I'd do a little kind of top 10, not in any sort of particular order of this is my favorite, as it took quite a while to get the top 10 together. Initially I was a bit like, oh, can I get to 10? And then I was like, oh, what about this and what about this? So there will be a few honourable mentions at the end as well. Yeah, and this is more of a top 10 of things that, you know, I like to, like, when October rolls around, what are the go-to kind of horror sci-fi kind of films that I go to get into that Halloween spirit, as was. And it's quite funny because one of my friends has only just sort of really got into horror films. So, and she's coming to stay this weekend, and I'm kind of like her horror guru at the moment. So when she comes, we always watch horror films. So I'm trying to introduce her to different sort of genres of horror films, different types of horror films. So I think this list is probably a little bit slanted towards that. So there's not really going to be, I think, any shockers in here or films you haven't heard of. These are very much the classics. So apologies if everybody's gone, well, that was, thanks for just telling us films we already know, Andy. But anyways, these are what I think are cracking films. I've already watched some of these in the build up to Halloween. Some I'm hanging on to watch, obviously, when my friend's here. So with no further ado, let's crack on, shall we? So the first one, which I did actually watch the other night, I just want to start with, is this. The Fog, the original, the 1980 version by John Carpenter. I love this film. It scared the crap out of me as a kid. And I think like most 80s kids, our parents, no, we had bad parents, I suppose, but, they just didn't really care what we were watching. And my mum was a huge horror fan, horror films, horror books. She read so many horror books. And allowed me to watch them and read them too. I know. 80s parents, what can I say? So yeah, one of the many I was allowed to watch as a kid. Scared the bejesus out of me. So for those that don't know, this is there's a town, I think it's in Maine, and they're sort of celebrating the 100 years of the town being formed. They believe there's so they're building like a statue to commemorate the founders of the town. Very early on, the priest finds a diary or a memoir thing of his great-great-grandfather, and a story comes out that basically the founding fathers stole the gold or the money to build the town from a very wealthy gentleman who him and his sort of colony of lepers had basically approached them to say, we've sort of found this bit of land or island, a mile up the coast. We just want to settle there, be left alone, live our lives until, we expire, as they've all got leprosy. They agreed to do this. But then literally a fog comes in. They plan to, as if they're dying anyway, they've got leprosy, we'll just rob them, take their money. A fog rolls in on the night they plan to do this. They set up a false fire and the ship crashes onto the rocks and everybody's killed. And then they steal the gold and they set up the town. Then at this 100th anniversary, we start getting this weird fog coming in. A piece of driftwood's found on the beach called the Eliza Dane, which was the name of the ship that crashed. And ghostly goings on start coming out of the fog. You've got two sort of horror legends in this, or three actually, I guess, with Adrienne Barbeau, who's obviously in a lot of John Carpenter films, Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis, and her mother, Janet Leigh, and John Houseman. So yeah, one of John Carpenter's best, I think, actually, for me. This is like one of my real favorites of his. They're very atmospheric. Obviously, as you expect, this is 1980, so all real effects, and actually the way they do the ghosts coming out of the fog, really cool. So The Fog, go check it out. Make sure you get the 1980 version, not the remake with Tom Welling. It's all right, but stick with the original. Cool. Excellent. So next on the list, I have Poltergeist. Again, scared the bejesus out of me when I was a kid. Obviously, everybody knows that this is kind of Steven Spielberg was involved in this. He was like an executive producer. Again, all obviously original effects. It starts off as like a really kind of light-hearted film in suburbia. There's a new housing development, and the main family in this, the husband works for the property developers, hence why they've got a house here. And then you've got a family, 3 kids, and things start off quite innocent at the beginning. So just little things start happening around the house, weird goings on. Then we sort of see the chairs stacking themselves, all the cupboards opening. The youngest daughter, Carol Ann, can literally slide across the floor from one point to another, and the mother's put a crash helmet on her and sending her across the floor. Again, 80s parents, right? But things do start to escalate, and there's obviously a very, very famous line from this. And Carol Ann starts, back in the day, you modern kids won't know this, but when TV was on and then there was a period overnight where there was nothing on, you just get like the snowy screen, like a white noise being transmitted. And Carol Ann starts talking to this TV and these noises, and she's responding to them. And we see something come out the TV and hit the wall. And Carol Ann turns around and says those immortal words, "They're here." And then from that point onwards, this film just goes bonkers. And Carol Ann goes missing. She's taken by whatever was in the TV screen. And then the story plays out about the housing development, where the houses were built, and most importantly, what's actually under the houses. And it's about the family and the mother and that trying to get their daughter back. And obviously they paranormal investigators come in and they try and help. And there's Tangina, who's the psychic who figures out kind of what's going on. Again, really stands up to the test of time. The effects stand up. It's absolutely great. I mean, obviously there's some tragedy, real life tragedy around this film with Dominique Dunne, who died not long after making this, who was horrifically murdered by her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend at the time. So it's one of the few things that she's known for. She was definitely up and coming. She was due to star in V, the miniseries, which is another thing I absolutely love. But unfortunately, she died before she could make that. But that aside, great casting, great acting. It was, if you like your supernatural spooky, this is great. And actually, Poltergeist 2 is pretty decent as well. Poltergeist 3 goes off a cliff. But definitely check this one out. Check it out. Okay. What have we got next? Okay, so another John Carpenter. And you just can't have, I think, Halloween horror without The Thing. Obviously, infamous for absolutely bombing at the box office when it came out back in 81, I think it was. And it's become an absolute classic over the years. as ever, John Carpenter. You've got Kurt Russell. I forgot his name there for a second. Who's absolutely fantastic in this. Obviously, he appears in a lot of John Carpenter's films. One of my absolute favourites. Post up there. Big Trouble in Little China. Escape from New York. Escape from LA. But this is just on. So this is obviously a remake of sort of 1950s. I'm going to punt at the Thing from Outer Space, and pretty much the story is the same. So it starts with this helicopter flying in. They're in the Antarctic, I think. Yes, Antarctic Research Station. And we see this helicopter flying in, chasing this husky over the snow, and then they start shooting at the dog, and you're a bit like, oh, don't kill the dog, what's going on? And this turns out to be some Norwegian scientists trying to kill this dog, and they basically end up coming over to the American base, scientific base, where these guys, Kurt Russell's guys, are based, and the helicopter ends up crashing, and the dog ends up with these guys. All very safe and straightforward. That evening, very quickly, they start hearing the dog, that obviously they've got their own husky dogs, the dog's in there with them, and the dogs start freaking out, and we cut to the dogs, and they're trying to literally bite their way out of the kennel that they're in. The guys come rushing down, and we see this thing, and it's almost absorbing the dogs, transforming into the dogs. This masked creature, the best special effects. Again, years before computer effects. I'm pretty sure if it didn't win awards, it should have won awards. They're absolutely legendary, and obviously things just go downhill from there. And it's a case of these guys. This thing can literally replicate and turn into any living organism, we assume, because we've seen it as a dog. Then it can turn into the actual people on the base. So there's a whole mistrust, like who anyone could be the thing, who is it, and they have to try and work out how to test and figure out who amongst them is the thing. And it's just a real survival story. It's almost a bit like a sort of a slasher film in some ways, but with an alien rather than someone coming at you with a machete kind of thing. So great film, so well made. The tension keeps you guessing, and say the special effects are just absolutely phenomenal. So the thing. And talking of special effects, see what I did there? American Werewolf in London. I love this film so much. John Landis absolutely revolutionized werewolf transformations and how werewolves were shown on screen. This is around the same time as The Howling. I also have the 40th 4K of that, which is probably an honorable mention, but out of the two, this is my favorite. For a film made by an American, it has a very British sense of humor, very sarcastic, quite dry. And I think most people know this film. If you don't, what are you playing at? This is a great version. This is like the 40th anniversary. So you got this fantastic book that comes with it as well, and cards, and behind the scenes and how they've done the special effects. It's renowned for we basically got these two characters, David and his best friend Jack, who have been Americans. They've been on this summer break, have been touring around Europe. They've been in Italy. They've just come over to the UK, and they're hiking in the north of England on the moors. Typical UK, it's peeing it down, it's cold. And they find this pub called the Slaughtered Lamb for shelter. They walk in, and it's an absolute tumbleweed moment. It's like this place is for locals. We don't do strangers. We don't like questions. Like just have a cup of, have a drink and go kind of thing. So they sort of come in, the barman sort of agrees to make some tea and some soup, but they need to be on their way kind of thing. And there's some guys like playing darts, and they're sort of telling jokes and, sort of breaking the ice with the locals. It's all a bit frosty. And then Jack here pipes up and points at the wall. What's that pentagram on the wall for? And the guy's playing darts. He throws a dart and he misses the board, and it goes, he's never missed the board. And they basically get told to get out. And the landlady's like, you can't send them out. And they're like, they need to go. So the boys basically get thrown out of the pub, and they're told to stay on the roads and off the moors, and they'll be fine. So they're hiking in the dark. The weather's not good. They start singing to try and cheer each other up, talking like we could have still been in Italy in the sunshine kind of thing. And they stop paying attention to where they're going, and they end up on the moors. Then they start hearing noises, growling, and it seems to be all around them. And next thing we know, Jack's attacked. And David's there, and he's just seeing his friend being torn apart. And then David gets attacked. Next thing we know, David is waking up in a hospital in London. And he's told that he was attacked by an escaped lunatic. Now, from the title, we established quite quickly that he may well have been an escaped lunatic, but he was also a werewolf. And David starts seeing Jack. And this is like the werewolf itself and Jack's makeup are absolutely phenomenal. So obviously Jack's dead and he's in limbo, and he's stuck in limbo because he's the victim of a werewolf. And until the werewolf's bloodline is severed, he can't pass over or find peace. So he's warning David that he's going to turn into a vampire, a werewolf, because David just thinks he's losing his mind. But as the film goes on, obviously Jack's dead and he's starting to decompose. So as it goes through, he's gradually getting more and more decomposed. And because the first time you see him, he's like still quite fresh and all the throat's open, and and then he starts sort of basically just being like gangrene. But the makeup is absolutely phenomenal, and the transformation is done in one take, one shot, real time. The camera never pans away. It is one of the best bits of special effects you'll ever see pre CGI. Absolutely phenomenal. Years ago, I think in the 90s, went out to Florida and Disney World. They had a show with like a special effects guy who'd done this, and they had some of the masks and stuff from this. They had the pod from The Fly. But going through how they did this, all that, and obviously on this, because it's a special edition, you've got the making, etc., etc. It's a funny film. It's a sad film. It's a cracking horror film. Go check it out. Cool. The next one, I don't actually have a physical copy, to my shame. I know, terrible. Is The Omen. The reason I don't have a physical copy is you can only get it DVD here. We don't even have a good Blu-ray. I know Criterion brought out the box set, but that's US only, and I don't have a region-free DVD player. I am like this. I'm really hoping this gets brought out on 4K, but given that Disney own it because they own Fox, I'm not going to hold my breath, because, they are completely sitting on and wasting the Fox back catalogue. So this came out in 1976. When I was a wee nipper. And it's just one of my all-time favourite horror films. And I guess it's obviously, I think, more sort of psychological horror. There was a bit of gore in there. Again, renowned for its special visual effects, for outrageous deaths. And I think when you watch this, you can see where like some of the inspiration for Final Destination came from in terms of how people get killed. I adore this film and the sequels. obviously you got Damien Omen 2, and then the final conflict with Sam Neill. But this is like, you know, such acting caliber as Lee Remick and Gregory Peck. You know, these are sort of actors you wouldn't normally get in horror films, really. It was, I guess, you know, horror films are always sort of slightly looked down on, but 70s, 80s, they were almost like legitimized, and it was just a huge phenomenon. And again, because this is a very, I think it's sort of psychological, part thriller, part horror, you know, cleverly written film. So I'm sure everybody knows the story, but so we start off in Rome, in Italy, once again, with Gregory Peck, who is the American ambassador to Italy, and his wife has gone into labor, and he's rushing to the hospital to get there. When he gets there, it's a hospital, and it's has nuns and priests sort of run it as well as, you know, as sort of nurses and such. And he's told the tragic news that the child was stillborn. It basically died, you know, literally took a breath and died. And we kind of get through a bit late, you know, that they have been trying for some time to have a child. There've been other miscarriages potentially. So this was like, she's finally got to full term. So he's like, this will absolutely destroy my wife. It will just break her. You know, she can't take another loss. So the priest talks him into and says, well, we've got a baby. Like, literally, as your baby died, this baby's mother died. So it's an orphan. There's no family. We can arrange for you to adopt this child. Nobody would ever need to know. And, you know, as you would, he's the Robert Thorne, which is Gregory Peck's character, accepts the child and takes him to his wife. And then we kind of cut to, he's then appointed the ambassador to the UK, the ambassador to the Court of St. James. They relocate to London. And initially we sort of see, like, as Damien's growing up, it's a very normal family, you know, very happy, cute kid. And then we kind of get to his 5th birthday, and it's his birthday party. And there's press there, and it's absolutely just huge and outlandish, and you know, the whole world, his mother's there. And then a Rottweiler comes trotting up on the grounds and stares at Damien's nanny, and then she kind of disappears. And the next thing we know, she's standing on the ledge. She's got a noose around her neck. And again, very famous, you know, it's all for you. And she jumps off and deletes herself. From here, things start going bad. A new nanny arrives, Mrs. Baylock, the great actress Billie Whitelaw, and takes over the role as nanny. But then she's she basically says to Damien, I'm here to protect you. Don't worry, you know, everything's going to be all right. And then more and more mysterious deaths start happening. A priest approaches Robert Thorne at his office and tells him he has to speak to him. It's about his son. And he knows about the mother, and he's like, you're talking about my wife, and he's known like it's his real mother. So and he basically tells him that his wife's in danger. And eventually the whole thing obviously transpires that Damien is the Antichrist, and he's been put, you know, he's through, you know, what's in the book of Revelation. He will come through from politics, like a family in politics. And obviously, if he's with a wealthy family or an influential family, that makes it much easier for him to get himself into a position of power when he's older. So through a series of different events and tragedies, Richard eventually convinces himself, basically has the evidence that Damien is in fact the Antichrist, and he needs to kill him, because obviously he's brought this child up. He loves him. He goes like, I can't murder a child. Are you insane? but he sees enough, and there's proof. He's told that he has mark, 666 on his head, and he finds the mark, and then it's basically a race against time then for him to try and kill the child, and again, one of the great endings to a film. That did Richard get there? Didn't he get there? And then the final shot is just a masterpiece from Richard Donner. Yeah, it's Richard Donner film, the same guy that made Superman. But his sensibilities, and I think everybody took this film very seriously. There's nothing tongue in cheek. There's nothing camp about this, or tacky in any way. It's such a well-made film. The suspense, the way it builds, the acting. I adore this film. So I just really want this on 4K. So hopefully I'll get that. You never know. Okay, moving on. So change of genres yet again. This blew my mind when I saw this film. Now, this is actually the quartet, I think they call it, quartet. So Hellraiser 1 to 4. I really want to talk about 1 and 2. And when I first saw Hellraiser, again, you want to talk about special effects. Whoosh! When Frank comes back to life, OMG. Again, I mean, nobody really, obviously Hellraiser, most people know, by Clive Barker, horror writer. It started off as a novella and evolved into the Hellraiser film. Again, breathtaking special effects for the time. Again, no CGI, fairly low budget, set in the UK. Again, so we kind of got a family moved into a house. The husband is American. He's just inherited it from his parents. His wife Julia is English, so they've got this house. It's a complete fixer-upper. His brother's Frank, and Frank's into some very dubious things, shall we say. Just this box set is absolutely phenomenal. So we can see that. So you kind of, and this is kind of in reference to, you got like Pinhead here, and forming of Pinhead, and the box on the back, and I'm in Hell, Help Me. That's from the second film. But this is just this is just an amazing 4K box set. A real lot of, if you're a fan, and this is a fantastic book that goes with it. It's all kind of sort of making of, and how it came about, and how they've done the special effects, and how it came through, like initial concept art, etc. So if you are a Hellraiser fan, this is a fantastic anniversary edition to get. So everybody knows there's the box. So I'm trying to think the name of Julia's husband's name. I can't think of his name right now. So they've moved into the house. As they're moving in, the husband cuts his hand, and a load of blood drips onto the floorboards in one of the bedrooms. This creates, basically bringing his brother back, Frank, and the special effects are just phenomenal. His skeleton starts to recreate, his heart reforms, and the blood that was spilled kind of gets him to a point where he's kind of this exoskeleton kind of. He's got his skeleton, he's got his muscles, but all the nerve endings are exposed. He's in excruciating pain. He has no skin. And then he is discovered by Julia. And through some flashbacks, we see that Julia had an affair with Frank, literally sort of a couple of days before they were due to her and his brother are due to get married. And she's kind of got this infatuation with Frank. She's not happily married to her husband. So she agrees to help Frank murder some people, so he can fully form and become whole again. So, and basically it's just really shallow, crass reasons, right? She just wants to be able to shag him again at the end of the day. And Larry, that's it, the husband, sorry, I was just googling that because it's bugging me, the brother Larry. So she just basically wants to be able to shag Frank again. She's not happy with Larry. She then starts going out and dressed up, bringing men back to the house and then murdering them so Frank can be whole again. Larry has a daughter from his first wife who passed away, and this is Kirsten. And Kirsten kind of gets sort of brought into this. She discovers like the puzzle box, and then we start finding out how Frank, well, we find at the beginning that when you open the puzzle box, it basically opens like a gateway to hell, a hell dimension. And the Cenobites come out, and it's all, you know, pleasure and pain are all just one thing. It's all twisted together. It's, you know, this sort of sensory stuff. And obviously Pinhead is probably the most famous Cenobite out of them all. And again, the effects are fantastic. It's basically going through the Kristen trying to save her father. Things don't end well for Larry or Julia or Frank. And then part 2 starts off, not unsurprisingly, with Kirsten being in a mental asylum. Everybody thinks she's bonkers, but then we find out basically the chief surgeon at here, Dr. Gerard, knows all about the puzzle boxes. He knows all about the Cenobites and basically wants to open the gateway, but he wants to have all the knowledge, but he doesn't want to actually open the box and play the game. Like, he doesn't want to end up dead. He just kind of wants the sort of power and the knowledge that comes with going to another dimension, almost, kind of thing. So he's a very shady doctor. He gets one of the patients, one of the kids, all she does is puzzles, and her mother brings her to him to help her. And obviously he basically sort of experiments on her brain and but basically gets her to open the box, which she does. And again, this Kirsten is trying to save, well, she thinks she's trying to save her father. She thinks he's gone to hell based on how the first one ended. And again, this is like Kirsten's journey of like trying to get her father, how this all plays out. And we learn a lot more about the sort of Cenobites and where they came from and the whole behind this. Very bloody, very gory, great 2 films. The third one's not too bad. It's watchable. And then the sort of fourth one is probably the last watchable one. There's probably about another 6 movies after this, but they aren't really Hellraiser movies. They're really low budget. They're kind of like horror films, and they've just kind of just shoved Pinhead in there. Doug Bradley stops paying him for quite a few of the films. So I'd stick to these. Definitely 1 and 2. Massively recommend these if you like your gory schlock, you know, much more visceral horror films. So check out Hellraiser 1 and 2. Cool. Okay, coming into the home straight now. You'll be glad to hear. Again, it's like when I don't have. I'm again waiting for the 4K to come out. Hopefully that will do soon. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. So, yeah. I love this film. It's probably the one I rewatched the most, then followed by Nightmare on Elm Street. And see, this is the sequel after the original. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Financially was successful, but didn't really hit the mark. It wasn't very well regarded, I don't think. And it's also kind of affectionately known as the gay one. There's a lot of homoerotic stuff in it, and people have talked about it since, including the star, the young lad that was in it. It is kind of, there is imagery and, you know, allegory about coming out and all of that in it. which I don't think people really got at the time. It's got more in retrospect that people have kind of gone, oh, okay. But I don't think people didn't like this film or the second one because of that. So it just didn't have. I think maybe because like Wes Craven wasn't involved and didn't write it, it just didn't quite have that darkness to it. And again, it's when they first started sort of leaning into the humor, I guess. So after that, Wes Craven came back and helped write the third one. I don't think he directed it. And it brought back the lead character from the first one, Nancy. And obviously we got Freddy Krueger doing his thing. One of the first films that Patricia Arquette was in, or was like well known, and a very, very young Lawrence Fishburne, who in the opening title is actually Larry Fishburne. So yeah, very, very young, small part in that. And this basically is just the sort of reintroduction that, you know, in the first film we're led to believe that Nancy killed him, so she believes he's dead. She's gone on to be a psychiatrist, or specializes in like night terrors and sort of dream therapies, unsurprisingly, after what she went through. And she's given a job at a mental facility to help look after these teenage kids who are all coming in, all talking about the same thing, all having these night terrors, all describing the same sort of things. And some of the kids are doing terrible things to stay awake. One of them like cuts their own eyelids off. You don't see this, we're just sort of told. And obviously, and this is again, like Nancy basically discovers that Freddy's still alive. And the reason it's called the Dream Warriors is that, you know, people can do things in their dreams that they can't do in the real world, or you can be a version of yourself in your dreams that you aren't. And they all have these dream powers. And Kirsten, which is Patricia Arquette's character, comes in, and she can pull people into her dreams. She hasn't done it since she was little. She used to bring her dad into her dreams when she's having a bad dream. He's not on the scene anymore. She's got the mother from hell who just basically doesn't want her around. She just kind of gets in the way of her life. And she has her committed, basically. And it's Nancy with one of the other doctors working with the kids to try so they can save themselves in their dreams, and how they can take down Freddy. We also learn the backstory to Freddy, who his mother was, how potentially he ended up being this serial killer. It was absolutely returned to form. Again, it's I think this is the real start of the one-liners, the quips, as he goes through the kills people, but still has that dark edge. As obviously the films progressed after this, he was just getting more and more cartoonish, I guess, or, you know, it was all more about the one-liners than it was actually sort of telling a story. So I think for me, this is the last really good Nightmare on Elm Street from the originals. New Nightmare, I also recommend. That's very good. Again, Wes Craven sort of came back and took control of the franchise, and that's a spin on the original Fred Krueger. So definitely go check that one out as well. But love this film. Like I said, this is probably one I rewatch more often. I have it digitally. I don't have a physical copy, which I need to rectify, but I'm waiting for the 4K. So, you know, let's hope, because I will just bring up now, they've just brought out the 40th anniversary of, oh gosh, I feel so old, Nightmare on Elm Street. That's my next mention. Is obviously the original, the darkest, the one that launched Johnny Depp's career. However you feel about that. And again, just obviously touch on, so obviously the kids are having nightmares about this guy, Fred Krueger. We find out that he was a child murderer. He was killing the locals' kids, and the parents. He got arrested. He got caught, but got away on a technicality. So parents take things into their own hands and murder him. And then somehow he's then able to come back and then take revenge on the parents by murdering their kids in their sleep. And Nancy's our leading girl. Her friend is brutally murdered. Her friend's like Tina, her best friend Tina, and then her boyfriend Rod. And then he's coming after Nancy and her boyfriend Glenn Johnny Depp. And it's kind of a race against time to figure out who he is, how to stop him before he kills her and her friends. Her mother's basically, she starts off quite together, but as things progress and Nancy's condition kind of deteriorates because she's not sleeping, you basically find out that her mother's an alcoholic and she just falls spectacularly off the wagon. So Nancy's got like nobody. Her mum's just like, you know, tells her the story of Fred Krueger, so it can't be him, he's dead. But she's turned into complete lush and no help whatsoever. So Nancy's on her own basically to try and stop him from murdering her and her friends. Absolutely blew us away when this film came out. We'd never seen anything like it. There's still not really anything like it now. I mean, and the Fred Krueger in this is much darker than he went on to be. Like, say, he became a little bit more quippy and a little bit caricature. But Robert Englund is just brilliant in this. Again, a great box set, loads of like posters and cards and a booklet about how all this is made. Commentary from Wes Craven, who's deeply missed, you know, big hole where that man used to be. But love this film. Again, it's one I saw. This is a 1984. So it's when it came out on video, probably about 85, 86. I saw this. I would have been like 10 or 11. Talk about scare the bejesus out of you. This is a gory film. It's a creepy film. You know, afterwards you are afraid to go to sleep after watching the film. And again, completely stands up. All these ones that stand up are, I think, ones that were made taking it completely seriously. Like, you completely believe, you know, as R&B would say, verisimilitude. You know, you completely believe what is going on or it could happen. They're just so well made. They love Wes Craven. Real loss that we don't have him anymore. We're far too young. Nightmare on Elm Street, absolutely legendary. I have shown this to my friend already. But we have the Dream Warriors to watch this weekend. So brilliant. Check this one out. Okay, last but no means least in my top 10. I love this film so much. Event Horizon. This is actually it does have a Spanish cover because I got it on eBay because I missed out on the limited edition one. But yeah, Steelbook, Event Horizon. I have shown this film to so many people who, like, when it came out, I can't even remember how I came across it. I know I didn't see it at the cinema. I think it must be on like Sky Cinema or something like that back in the day, whatever it was called back then. Sky Box Office, was it, or something? I don't know. And I came across this film, and I'm a big Sam Neill fan anyway. Love Sam Neill, and again, from when he played Damien in Omen 3. Been a fan ever since. Read his autobiography. He's brilliant, great actor. You know, most people will probably know him from Jurassic Park. Now there's some like stuff on the internet that like this is actually kind of connected to Hellraiser. Now, not through Clive Barker or his writings, but subsequent years. Like, so Event Horizon. So we start off that we have very opening. We've got some information. You know, first trip to the moon, first trip to Mars, set up colonies. Event Horizon, first kind of interstellar ship built, first test flight. It disappears. Everybody's presumed dead. X amount of years later, I can't remember what it is, like 15 years later or something like that. the Event Horizon just turns up outside of Neptune. The orbit of Neptune just reappears. Lawrence Fishburne, again, is head of a salvage crew, deep space salvage crew. You got Sean Pertwee, Jolie Richardson, and a couple of guys making up his crew. They're due to go on some well-earned shore leave. That gets cancelled. They go out with Sam Neill's character to get the Event Horizon, and they can find out where the hell the ship's been, what's gone on, where are the crew, rescue the crew if possible. When they get there, the ship's completely abandoned, but they're registering life forms. And then basically what we find out is that the crew are kind of ripped to shreds, and there's just like bits of them all up the walls and things like that, and that's what the life signs they're picking up. Then over the course, so it's got this special drive, special gateway that allows you to kind of hop to do the interstellar travel. Problem is, when they open the gateway, it didn't do what they envisaged it to do. It literally opens it to another dimension, and again, like a hell dimension. And this is where the theory that good old internet, because the internet does what the internet does, has sort of said, well, maybe that's where the Cenobites live. It's a kind of connected universe. And it's like a fan theory. This came up after both films came out completely independently, and it's a great theory. And when you watch this and then you watch Hellraiser, you go, that makes a lot of sense. So then it's a race against time then. The ship and where it's been, the ship itself is now almost alive. And there's some harrowing footage that they managed to find from the ship's log, and they kind of work out what happened to the crew. And again, in the, talk about infamous, they hired a load of porn stars to do some filming for this log that they find, because the crew's like running around naked, they're having sex, they're pulling each other apart. It's like absolute grotesque. Like if you're in the ninth circle of hell or something, this is the kind of stuff you'd expect to see. And like loads of footage was filmed. Obviously, we see a tiny amount sort of just flashing in and out, just enough so we can get a gist of how horrifically the crew died. But apparently there's like a good half an hour of this stuff, and it was sealed up, put in canisters, and then it was put in like a salt mine for some reason. So the film has been supposedly completely destroyed. So when the anniversary version came out, everyone was hoping for like a director's cut, and we get see a little bit more of what was filmed. Alas, no. So everybody's saying that it just doesn't exist anymore. Whether it does exist in someone's safe somewhere, have no idea. But the official copy of that footage is apparently destroyed because of the salt. So we'll never know. But certain stars, porn stars have been interviewed, and they've sort of talked about what they've filmed, etc., etc. But it's absolutely infamous. But this is a great, great horror film. It's not, I wouldn't say it's science fiction. It is horror. It just happens to be sort of set in space, really. But yeah, you have like Dr. Weir, who's Sam Neill's character, who is almost taken over by the ship or sort of possessed by it. He's then working against the salvage team because he's kind of bonded to the Event Horizon. It's basically the team trying to get off the ship before they're either killed or taken back to hell as well. Again, some very creative kills in this. But a great film. I absolutely loved it. And again, I've shown this quite a few people into this film. And they're not even necessarily big horror fans, but I've just said, you've got to check out this film. This is just like, and so far, no one's come back and said, what a load of. They agree with me that this is a great, great film. So check it out. Event Horizon. Absolutely love it. Now, there's a few honourable mentions and again, there's probably up team more I could bring in. And again, there's kind of like grey areas, like what's horror, not horror, kind of thing. But very quickly, I'm not going to go through synopsis of all of these, but just great shout outs. Fright Night, the original, the 1980 version. Vampire Next Door. And this artwork is just absolutely brilliant. I recreated this for an art project. I remember doing my exams, and I got pretty good grade as well. So I kind of drew this and cut it out, and yeah, it's amazing. But great film again. Peter Vincent, lovely Roddy McDowall. A spoof of Peter Cushing, kind of Van Helsing character. He's an actor. And the way they kind of recreate these schlocky Hammer horror type films that he's supposedly starred in. Vampire Next Door, Charlie Brewster oversees or sees something, and it looks like his neighbour's a vampire. Nobody believes him, understandably, thinks he's bonkers. Goes to Peter Vincent for help. He thinks he's bonkers. But obviously a series of things unravel, and comes pretty clear pretty quickly that, yes, there is a vampire next door. Chris Sarandon, brilliant. Again, funny, great effects, great story, great horror. If you like your vampire stuff, Fright Night. This is the original one. The remake's not too bad. It's all right. Very funny. David Tennant as an updated Peter Vincent, sort of Vegas-y type showman. But out the two, I definitely recommend the original. And the sequel's pretty good as well, part 2. Check that out. I love this. It's probably not very fashionable at the moment because of the old Joss Whedon, but Cabin in the Woods, Chris Hemsworth, funny, gory, twist at the end, has every horror trope known to man in it, and it's meant to have. It's just a great film. If you know nothing about this film, go into it cold. I'm not going to give a synopsis at all, but well made. It's got that very Joss Whedon sense of humor. So imagine a rated 18 version of Buffy. Brilliant film, absolutely. I think that's it. Again, went into this completely cold. Basically went to see it because of Chris Hemsworth and Joss Whedon. Didn't regret it. Great film. It's one I rewatched quite a lot as well. Great Sunday afternoon. Want a bit of a giggle, bit of a sloth. There we go. Cabin in the Woods. Another John Carpenter, Prince of Darkness. It's part of his trilogy. So The Thing, this, and In the Mouth of Madness, another Sam Neill film, worth a check out as well. This one again is kind of like a bit of a Antichrist kind of thing. Got a cameo by Alice Cooper in it. Great Donald Pleasance, who obviously was also in Halloween. Again, there's a church with this thing in it, cylinder with this green goo, and it basically turns out the green goo is kind of like the essence of the Antichrist. And a team of like sort of scientists there trying to figure out what it is, and bad stuff happens. Again, very low budget, very independent. It's a real Marmite one, this one. You either love it or you hate it. I own it, so obviously I quite like it. But again, not well received when it come out, but definitely worth a watch. So if you're, say, certainly a John Carpenter fan and sort of Donald Pleasance fan, very 80s, love it. Nearly there, guys. Happy Death Day. I love this film. Again, it's one I rewatch quite frequently, actually, probably a couple of times a year. A girl keeps reliving the same day. It's like Groundhog Day, but at the end of every day, she dies and the day resets. So we're trying to figure out, why does she keep being killed? Who's trying to kill her? And how does she stop herself from being killed? Again, some great twists and turns. Bit of a love story in there as well. Really, really enjoyed this. I quite like the sequel. The sequel leans probably more into sort of a science fiction than horror. So it doesn't quite have the, and humor, because there's a bit of humor in this as well, but leans much more into that. I think this one is much more of a horror film. So definitely check that one out. Last two, guys, whizzing through it now. Honorable mentions. Obviously, you got to have Halloween in here. John Carpenter. Again, the original slasher film, it kind of started it all. I mean, some might say Psycho started it all, but this was like the first real kicked off, Friday the 13th. We wouldn't have Scream, we wouldn't have was it Sleepaway Camp and all those other let's just murder teenagers for doing bad stuff kind of film. So, you know, great film, still stands up now, you know, in terms of the atmosphere, the music, the acting. Of course, it has the great Jamie Lee, the Scream Queen herself in it. So you have to be living under a rock, I think, if you've never seen the original Halloween. Always go to it first and foremost. The Rob Zombie Halloween, I've not actually seen. I've heard it's bad. And the recent remakes of Halloween, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, I actually quite like them. Halloween Ends was a little bit disappointing, but you know, you could literally watch Halloween and then jump to the most recent Halloween, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. They kind of follow on from each other. Again, Donald Pleasance in this, Jamie Lee Curtis. Go check it out. Absolutely brilliant film. And Smile. Smile was obviously quite a recent one. I actually really enjoyed it. Didn't know much about it. I kind of knew a little bit about the premise. I'd seen the trailers that obviously someone gives you that weird smile, you're screwed. But past that, didn't really know anything about it. Watched it, really enjoyed it. As you can see from my list, there's not a lot of really recent horror films in there because, you know, we haven't had a lot of really decent horror films in quite a long time. I'm sure people will jump on the comments and tell me that I'm wrong. So please do give me some shout outs to go see, or I'll let you know whether I've seen it and whether I liked it or didn't like it. Yeah, and I am actually going to see Smile 2 hopefully this weekend. So I will give you a review on that and let you know whether it's worth going seeing and does it stand up to the original. I've heard that literally the second one takes place sort of more or less straight after the first one. They follow into each other, which is great. But Smile, yeah, it was like, again, quite a low budget film. Great premise, something we hadn't really seen before. Really enjoyed it. I think you can stream it on Netflix and Paramount, I believe, here in the UK. So chance to check that out. And if you like it, then go see the sequel once I tell you whether to or not. Always make up your own mind. Don't listen to me. What do I know? So that's it. That's kind of my rundown, sort of top 10 films I like to watch in the run up to Halloween or over Halloween. Do you agree with those choices? Have I missed an absolute, you know, massive one? I guess The Exorcist I didn't talk about. That's probably an honorable mention. I guess that's a difficult one because obviously at the time it scared the bejesus out of people. You know, people throwing up in the cinema, like a la what we're seeing with Terrifier 3 right now. And I still haven't seen the Terrifier films. They are for this Halloween coming up. 1 and 2 are on Paramount, I think, and I will be watching them, and I'll let you know what I think about those as well. But when you watch it now, it doesn't have the same effect as it did when it came out. And I think to modern audiences, I think they find it a little bit boring, to be honest. I mean, I must admit that when I watched it, I was quite young when I watched it. And again, shouldn't have been watching it, I'm sure. I kind of liked it, but I found it a little bit boring when I was younger. I mean, I've rewatched it since, and I'm like, actually, that's a better film than I remember. But it's fairly slow paced. Great acting, well written, well made, and everything. But and I like it a lot more now than when I watched it when I was younger. Because maybe I didn't get the nuances in it. I don't know. I sort of found it a bit like, okay. But you know, great film. And if you're, as my friend is, like, you know, getting into horror and you kind of need to understand where a lot of the modern horror films have come from, The Exorcist is one of those. And I think if you want to see like a modern Exorcist film, I'd say The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe. Great fun. Check that one out. Not The Exorcism, that was terrible. That also Russell Crowe, that was really bad. But The Pope's Exorcist, great film. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, and I guess some people argue that Jaws is in there, not in there. I personally don't see Jaws as a horror film, but absolute masterpiece. Again, obviously got the 4K, beautiful remaster, really, really brilliant. And I could go on and on and on. So I am going to stop there. Then I'm sure there's absolutely some movies that you guys will tell me, and I'm like, oh, of course that should have been in the top 10 or should have been an honorable mention. As I said, the top 10 was no particular order. it's not how I rank them. That's just the 10. I guess I probably wanted to talk about the most. Once this is out there, I'll probably go, oh, I forgot that. So, next year I'll have to do another one for you, won't I? But anyway, that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the films I've listed. Do let me know if there's some that I've forgotten, or if there's some things you think I should check out. There might be some stuff in there I've not seen, which would be great. As I said, hopefully going to see Smile 2 this weekend, taking my friend who'll be getting into horror films. She watched Smile actually around here, and that was the film that she watched Smile. She goes, oh, I'm not great with horror films. She watched Smile, really enjoyed it, and that was the thing that got her on her journey. So who knows what it's going to be. So let me know what you think. As always, hate to say it because it's cheesy, but you know it. Please like, share and subscribe. It does massively help. Any interactions really help with the good old algorithm. Obviously still trying to build the channel. So hard when you don't have a lot of time to make content. So I really hope you've enjoyed this. As I said, have a great Halloween, especially to the guys in the States, because obviously it's massive out there. We get the odd trick-or-treater here, but not so much. But it's a good excuse to watch your horror films. So have a great Halloween. Have a great week. And I will see you soon with hopefully the Smile 2 review. You take care now. Bye-bye.